Now let's welcome our main speaker for tonight, and our main speaker is Bob Lemke.
Hi, my name is Bob Lemke. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Bob.
Glad to be here. I want to thank, now I forgot his name. Justin. And Manny for being here when I got here. It's always a pleasure for me to participate in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it's a little more meaningful when there's new people like there is, or comparatively new people, because whether you new people realize this or not, and I'm sure you don't because we didn't, fact of life. Next to us old-timers, you're the second most important people in the room tonight. Don't ever forget it. But really, without you new people, this thing would probably end up with all us old-timers sitting here telling these same old stories. You'd probably all get drunk, you know? So you are an important part of Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't ever forget it. Aren't any Texans in the room tonight? There's a Texan in the back. Yeah, they move around a lot. The reason I ask that is when you talk in Texas, if in the first 5 minutes of your talk you don't tell them your sobriety date, they automatically assume you don't have one. So in deference to our Texas friend in the back, my sobriety date is the 13th of January, 1964, which means I just celebrated 42 years. I want you new people to know this as a fact. I did not come here to get 42 years sober. Primarily, I came here to get all those people off my back. You know, the bill collectors, and that woman, and those kids, and that damn dog, and the IRS. If they'd all get off my back, everything would have been all right, you know? But that isn't how it was. And so I'm eternally grateful. Every time I get on a podium, I feel a gratitude all over for my time here. And it's all been through the grace of somebody bigger than all of us. You know, in the 60s, a lot of things were going on in this country, including Vietnam. But also, something that none of you people in this room know, there were meetings going on in this country in every state house in the Union, every state house in the Union. And they were about economic chaos going on in the country. Such things like absenteeism, broken up equipment, stolen money, broken up trucks, stolen equipment, all due to alcoholism. And they were at a loss what to do with it. They didn't know anything about alcoholism. And fortunately for everybody, at that same time in Iowa, 5 truck drivers went out of drunk. And they were gone for quite a while. And when 5 truck drivers are missing from a town like Ida Grove, Iowa, that's a big problem. And so after they were gone a couple weeks, a bunch of guys got together and started really searching the area, trying to find them. And one of the guys came down this dirt road, saw this little corrugated shed over there in the corner, stopped, opened it up, and there they were. 3 of them were dead from alcohol poisoning, and 2 of them were still alive. And they pulled them out, and wouldn't you know, some time later, one of those 2 guys got to be the governor of the state of Iowa. Things like that don't happen normally in Alcoholics Anonymous to people like you and I. But it happened to Harold. And he used to sneak out of the governor's mansion at 2, 3 in the morning, go call on sick drunks. And the drunk didn't even know he was the governor, you know. And the people of Iowa loved him so much that after 2 terms as governor, they sent him to the United States Senate. And he got to be the United States Senator from the state of Iowa. And when he got to the Senate, he met a couple members of our fellowship, and they sat down to compose a bill about alcoholism in this country. And they did something that most politicians don't do. They put some money where their mouth was. And they put some money in this project. It was a pilot project, tried to start some on a small scale, small recovery places all over the country. And they did it. And that has been the forerunner of some of the big programs we have today. And thank God they did what they did. Also at that time, the medical profession got interested because now there was going to be some money in it. Because up until then, most people in the medical profession, and a lot of them still yet today, define alcoholism as a Valium deficiency. Yeah. Just feed them Valium, keep them quiet, they don't pay their bill anyhow. And they cause all kinds of ruckus in the office and all that kind of stuff. Just keep them quiet. That's the idea. And so that's what they did. And also at that time, wouldn't you know, in all the medical schools in this country, 1 hour was devoted to alcoholism. 1 hour in 4 years. And today, half of their time is spent on substance abuse. Substance abuse. And so they made a big inroad. Also, the medical profession then and now tried to kind of explain alcoholism. And there's two sides of the house still today. One side of the house says it's hereditary. You get it in the genes, this disease of alcoholism. And the other side of the house says, no, I think it's from consumption and assumption. And I don't know who's right, and I really don't care. I just know I are one. But if this thing has anything to do with hereditary, you know, as soon as I heard it, I'm the kind of nut that I got to go way back in my history and find out who all the drunks were in the family and why I got this thing, you know. And I got all the way back to my great-great-grandfather and found out he was a drunk. My great-grandfather was a drunk. I know my grandfather was a drunk. My dad and his two brothers were alcoholics. My oldest brother and I are members of Alcoholics Anonymous. My two kids are alcoholics. You'd almost think it's hereditary in our family. But then there's my middle brother. He's a social drinker. I can't explain that. And I watch him like a hawk. And coming up around Easter time, he lives in San Francisco. I live in Glendale. And when I was drinking, I don't know about any of you, but when I'm a bar drinking drunk, you know. Are there any bar drinkers here tonight? Thank God. I mean, I don't know the rest of you did your thing, but I'll tell you this, if you didn't get some bar time in, you missed a lot of fun. I loved everything about those joints, you know. I loved everything that goes on in there. I like the smell in there. I like them stools you can spin around on. I like the mirrors that they got in those places. You know, Perry and I could go out here tonight, tomorrow, open up a joint on Washington Boulevard without a mirror. Fact of life, we go broke in 2 weeks. 3 things you have to have in this country in order to operate a bar successfully. 1, you got to have the booze. 2nd, you got to have a license to sell it. And 3rd, you got to have a mirror, or you will not make it in the bar business. That mirror, incidentally, is not there for social drinkers. Bars cannot survive on social drinkers. They depend on people who drink in volume. And you and I are the volume drinkers of this world. Social drinkers do weird stuff in bars. You bar drinkers know what I'm talking about. They come in there and have a couple of drinky poos, and then they start saying weird off the wall kind of crap like, ooh, I'm getting dizzy, I'm going home. Going home? People like you and I, we sit there all day. And we have to have something to entertain ourselves, and it's usually our own image. That's the mirror. We sit there all day staring in the mirror, you know, figuring things out, you know. I like them jukeboxes they have in them places. You know, the ones that play Born to Lose all day. I even got to like the Men's John in them places. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, we used to have a guy around here by the name of Norm Alpe, who in my opinion is the greatest speaker Alcoholics Anonymous ever had, ever will have. And he was a bar drinking drunk. And the first time I heard him, he was up at one of his podiums like this, and he talked fast. I mean, he's the only man up till tonight can give a 1-hour talk in 32 minutes. And he'd shoot it out there really fast, and you had to listen close to get you. And he's going up there, going on, and all of a sudden he said something weird. At least I thought it was weird. I was pretty new. He said he got to be a bathroom slider in the Men's John. And right there, one of the bananas fell out of my ears, and I thought, what's this clown talking about? You know, I thought I'd done it all by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know about any of you, but I'm certain I did it all. And here's this guy talking about something completely foreign to me. I don't know what in the world he's talking about. And he went on to explain that bathroom sliders in the men's, John, I think in the ladies too, where they have them paid toilets, good, keen, smart alcoholics slide under the door to avoid paying and save that money for drinking whiskey. And I thought, by God, why didn't I think of that? Bet you there's a couple newcomers thinking that right now. And then he went out to explain whenever he got done doing what he was doing in there, he'd slide back out under the door. Never realizing, of course, that once you're in there, you can turn the handle and walk out, you know. And anybody that thinks like that is a friend of mine. And so I'm eternally grateful to the Norm Alpes and the Eddie Regans and the Chuck Chamberlains and Jimmy Ryans who said things from podiums like this to drunks like me, or I would not be here. I would not be here. But I got to get back to that brother of mine. When I drink in bars, you know, I suffer from big shot-itis. Give them all a drink, you know. Pretty soon the paycheck's gone, you know. Then I got to call my brother, put the bite on him. And he was always nice about it. He would send me the money. And invariably, about a week after I got all this financial chaos done in my life, he would call me and say things to me that norms he'd say to alcoholics. He'd say, I heard you're drinking again. You know, what's new to him, you know? And I think, you know, how the heck does he know? He's in San Francisco, I'm in Glendale. But I got that figured out. It's my mother. She lives in Wisconsin, 2,000 miles away, and she can smell whiskey on me 2,000 miles away. And she'd call him and say, Bob's drinking again. And then sometimes he would call and ask the worst question I ever heard of Normsy ask an alcoholic. He said, why don't you just quit? Just quit. He's got to be crazy. I don't know about you, but when I was drinking, my drinking was one thing keeping me from going completely crazy, just flipping out, you know? And I'm just eternally grateful. He never denied helping me out when I needed it. And so when I got going back in the family tree, I thought I better go a little further, because I think, why all of us and why not him and all that kind of stuff. And so I got all the way back to day one. And I've come to some conclusions, and I realize now they're my conclusions, and I'm stuck with them. But I've come to the conclusion the day I was born, I had 2 strikes against me right out of the chute, you know. First of all, I was born in this little town in Wisconsin, and you all know how little towns are. Everybody knows everybody's business, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad. And in my case, it was always bad. And the second strike I had against me was my dad was assistant chief of police in that damn town. He was about 6'4", weighed 240 pounds, wore a uniform, carried a gun, scared the living bejesus out of you. And for the first 15 years of my life, I did everything that turkey told me to do, just out of fear. Because I knew deep down inside, if he ever hit me, he'd kill me. He's a big moose and a tough cop, and I'm scared to death of him. I mean, little things. If he told me to run to the store, I literally ran to the store. I mean, I didn't slow down when I got out of sight neither, and I'd run all the way back. If he told me to carry out the trash, I carried out everything that even looked like trash. If he told me to rake the leaves, I even raked the neighbor's leaves. And in Wisconsin, they have a lot of snow. And he taught me very early in life, if 5 flakes of snow fall on our sidewalk, it's my job to take it off of there. And like I say, I did it religiously out of fear until this magical thing that happens to people, human beings, about the age of 15. Something happens to human beings. Medical science to this day can't figure it out. You know that it happened to you, and I know that it happened to me. If you don't believe me, go out here tonight, find a 15-year-old. Ask him or her a question on any subject in the world, they'll tell you. The smartest thing walking the face of the earth right this minute is a 15-year-old, in their humble opinion. And you were no different, and I was no different. And I don't know how it happened to you, but I have this concept that it came floating on the cloud in my bedroom at night or something, went kaboom. And no bells or whistles went off, but I knew the next morning something had happened. And I got up that morning, went downstairs, had breakfast, headed off to school, no big deal. Came home from school at noon. It was snowing. I know my job, right? But this thing had happened in the night. And all of a sudden, you know, my attitude changed. And I said, you know, what will the neighbors say? A genius out there shoveling snow, you know, manual labor. All of a sudden, it's beneath my station in life. I just won't do it. Took the snow shovel, set it up against the house, said, the heck with them. I just won't do it no more. Went in the kitchen, sat down at the kitchen table, started to eat my lunch. Then I heard the squad car pull up in front, and I heard the car door slam. Then I heard the shovel out there on the sidewalk. I said, it's about time he does something around here. I mean, did you ever have the feeling like you got to do it all? That's the way I felt. And he came in the house all out of breath because he wasn't used to that manual labor. I'm doing it all. Took off that uniform cap and that big heavy Mackinaw they wear in the winter, and that Sam Brown belt and that 45, and laid it on the dining room table like he did every day. Came in the kitchen, sat down at the kitchen table right across from me. And then he threw me a curve. He didn't say a word. And if you've just been endowed with all these smarts, that will drive you nuts. I'm just waiting for him to say something. I've been saving it up for 15 years. And today's the day I'm going to lay it on him. And he didn't say a word. And I had to finish my lunch. I finished my lunch and I had to go back to school. And I can remember this like it happened this noon. Walked around the kitchen table, had to go past him, out through the dining room, through the living room, out the front door, back to school. I can't explain this. I'm sure you understand it. I just knew deep down inside, I could not let a situation like this go by without saying something. And I stopped right in front of him, looked him right in the eye, reached down his side, got one of them pearls of wisdom I just been endowed with, right? Looked him right in the eye, said the smartest thing I could think of. I said, is the snow heavy today? A big mistake. He didn't say a word again. He just kind of turned in a chair like this and came all the way from right field with a flat of the hand, direct hit. And I took off in the air, up against the dining room windows. And when I came to, I developed another bad attitude. I said to myself, and only to myself, nobody can hit me like that and get away with it. In fact, it was the first and only time he ever hit me in my life. Nobody can hit me like that and get away with it. I'll get even with him, by God, if it kills him. And in the quiet of my room at night, I used to plan his demise. Now, I understand today that's not proper thinking for a 15-year-old to be planning his father's demise. But that's the way it really was. But I want to tell you something else. Maybe 10 seconds before he hit me, 10 seconds, he's the sun, moon, and stars in my life. And that's what I'm going to be when I get big and all that kind of crap. And all he had to do is hit me one time. And I hate his guts, just like that. Some of these things I'm about to tell you, I believe have all had an effect on my attitude towards people, places, and things. And by the time I got to the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, my attitude towards people, places, and things was really messed up. About a year after that hitting incident, another big deal happened. Another cold winter day in Wisconsin. Snow piled up as high as this doorway. And 3 of my buddies and I come home from school about 4 in the afternoon, come down the street, get to the corner to go down to my house. And there, passed out in the snowbank in full uniform, is my dad, dead drunk. And these supposed buddies of mine started teasing me about my drunk dad, the drunk cop. And we went to Fifth City right there, and I won. But I'll never forget the feelings and emotions I had that day. I realized then and there that he had disgraced that uniform he wore, disgraced that badge he wore, and lost the faith and trust of the community that he had pledged his life to protect and to serve. Big deal. About a year after that incident, another big deal happened. At the age of 47, he died of chronic alcoholism. Didn't say that on his death certificate. He's a big shot in that town. It said heart disease. But those who knew him and loved him knew that the booze had gotten him, and I found out another fact of life. That doctors, doctors, lie on death certificates for certain people in certain towns, and they're still doing it today. Fact of life. About a year after that incident, another big deal happened in my life. I was going with this gal. When I say we were going together, we started out in kindergarten together. Same kindergarten, same grade school, same high school, same Sunday school, same church. Right out of high school, we got married. It was a beautiful event, crossed white shotguns, everything. She never did like me to say that, you know. I used to slough it off by saying, well, it happens in the best regulated families, right? And right after we got married, like all women, she started to demand things like furniture to sit on and curtains on the windows and all that stuff. And I don't have any money. And so I go down and see my dad's buddy, the chief. Told him she wants all this stuff and I don't have any money. He said, go up to the sheriff's department tomorrow. I think they need help. Walked into the sheriff's department the next morning, they pinned a gold badge on me. And I got to be a drunk cop, just like my dad. Time doesn't permit me to tell you what can happen to a drunk cop, except stir up some old resentments, and God knows you probably don't need any more, especially when it comes to cops. Bunch of cop haters sitting right over there and one over there. I can spot them a mile away. But I'll tell you right now, if I could be anything in this world this very minute, it'd still be a cop. I loved every minute of it. I loved all the excitement, the camaraderie, and everything that goes with being a cop. And I don't know what was going on in your life prior to joining Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'll tell you another fact of life. Do you know that 99 out of 100 human beings, that isn't only us, that's all those people out there, 99 out of 100 human beings have one thing in their life that's the single most important thing in their life. And in 99 out of 100 cases, that one single thing is another human being. Isn't it incredible? It's another human being. It's a wife, a husband, a lover, a child, a parent, a grandparent, aunts, uncles, somebody is the single most important thing in 99 out of 100 people's lives, except cops. And I know there's no cops here tonight, but if there were, they'd tell you the same thing I'm going to tell you. I'd have done anything short of murder to keep that damn badge, except stay away from one drink of whiskey. And this woman knew nothing about alcoholism. She was in for a real ride. And she didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Alateen, Alatot, none of that stuff. All she knew is she loved a drunk cop and it was driving her nuts. And at that time, I'm a phony, a cheat, a liar, and a con. If you don't know what a con is, you're looking at one. But I did spot a couple more in here today. Glad all you con artists are here. I don't know about you, but I was really good at it. You know, I could con you out of your socks and you wouldn't even know it. I think I could do it again with a couple weeks practice. And I don't want any newcomers to think I got a bunch of warrants in my pocket and start heading for the doors. I mean, they took that badge away from me a long time ago, and next to the night she died, it was probably the second worst night of my life. Nothing I planned, because like I tell you, I'd be out there riding the black and white tonight. It all came down one night, a bunch of cops and their wives going to have a party. And I don't think there's anything much different between a cops party and a civilian party, except maybe at the cops party the booze is all free. And that's where drunks like me really shine. I don't know about any of you, but I just love free booze parties. And I'm not the kind of guy at a free booze party sitting back there in the corner sipping on drinks with little pinkies sticking out, you know. I'm back there in the kitchen where the supply is with both hands, getting all I can get while the getting's good in case they run out, you know. And I don't know how long we were at that party, and she sidled up next to me in the kitchen and says, we're leaving. I said, what are you talking about, woman? We just got here. At least it seemed like that to me. She looked at me with them cold Al-Anon eyes and says, we're leaving. And I don't know to this day how she got the keys, because I'm like you, you know. It's my car, I drive. I'm sure nobody here ever said that. And she had the keys and we left. And all the way home, she started bad-mouthing me again about my drinking, you know? And this is what it says in the book. It's in the book. Read the book. It says, you and I, who are real alcoholics, go through life with blinders on us like they put on horses, and we don't see anything that way, and we don't see anything that way. It's our way or no way. We're very selfish individuals. And she's yakking away at me about all these god-awful truths I don't want to hear. And every alcoholic I know, when people are telling us these god-awful truths we don't want to hear, we got a switch up here and shut it all off. It don't even hit the eardrum. Shoo, right over the top. And I can't explain it, but something happened that night on the way home. Maybe the switch went back on, maybe the blinders fell off, and maybe both. But for the first time in our married life, I started hearing some heavy-duty stuff she's laying on me. She's starting to say things to me like, how my drinking is affecting our entire life, she said. I said, now what are you talking about? She says, first of all, it's affecting our social life. I said, yeah, how's that? She said, we just had to leave that party back there for one reason only. I said, yeah, what's that? She said, because of your dirty, filthy mouth. I'm sure nobody here believes that either. And then she said, not only that, it's affecting every other aspect of our life. I said, now what are you talking about? She said, it's affecting our home life, our family life, our kids' lives, our financial life, our sex life, everything about us. It's being affected by my drinking. Now I'm certain she flipped her lid or something. And we got in the house and she wouldn't shut up. And I reached for the only thing I know would shut her up, a 38. I said, woman, I've heard all I'm ever going to hear from you about my drinking. I'll blow your damn brains out. And she took off like a deer out the front door of that house, 6 blocks down the street to the only place she knew she could get help, right? The sheriff's office that I work at. And I'd have got her too if she'd just slowed down. And you'd have a different speaker here tonight too. I'd probably be up there in the yard, walking the yard, talking the talk, and walking the walk. And so I'm eternally grateful to the same God that I've come to know, that I didn't pull that trigger that night. And I came out of that blackout standing in the middle of the sheriff's office at 3 o'clock in the morning with a 38 in my hand, going to kill somebody. And all the guys are coming off the late shift, and they're standing around the squad room, and they're all looking at me kind of funny. You know how your family, friends, loved ones, fellow workers look at you when you're drunker than a skunk? They kind of look down their nose at you like you're some kind of second-class citizen or something. I can't even explain it. But I'll tell you another fact of life. If you don't know what I'm talking about right this second, you do not belong here. Those people near and dear to us really look at us when we're drunken as a skunk. And they're all looking at me, and all of a sudden, my boss, the elected sheriff of that county, heard the ruckus in the squad room. He come busting in the squad room at 3 in the morning, looked at those guys coming off the late shift, and he looked at me. And being a boss recently, I know today, I didn't know then, I know today, he had to make a management decision, and he had to do it damn fast. And he walked up to me, held out his hand, and says, Bob, hand it over, the badge and the gun. And he took away that badge, that gun, and that uniform, and they had to go out there and face that world bare naked. That's too much for a normal person, much less a drunk like me. So at the age of 31, I did the most adult, mature thing I could think of. I ran away from home. There's any runners here tonight, I want to talk to you outside after the meeting. But I'll tell you what, no matter where I go in this country or any other country, these rooms are full of runners, you know that? Running to something, running from something. And every runner who's ever come to Alcoholics Anonymous, including me, we all forgot one thing, and we all forgot the same identical thing. And that is, no matter where you're running to or running from, you forgot it, I forgot it. I had to bring me along, and you had to bring you along. And you is the problem, and me is the problem. And you can't make this thing alone, and I can't make this thing alone. But together we can make it. And that's the miracle it talks about in our book. One drunk talking to another, and it works. Works to the tune of over 3 million sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's good enough for me. And I consider myself a very fortunate member of this fellowship because over the years, I've had the privilege, and I mean a privilege, to eyeball probably 50% of them, eyeball to eyeball. I believe that's an earned privilege. It is not given. You earn the right to do this and suit up and show up and drive to Culver City on a Sunday night. I'm not complaining. I'm just reporting. And I love it. I love every minute of it. But I think in the time allotted, I better tell you about my last drunk, because I've been here long enough to say this with authority. If you can't remember your last drunk, you probably haven't had it yet. And I don't know about any of you, but I never want to forget what was going on in my life the day I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was a desperate man. And if you're new here tonight, I hope you're as desperate about this deal as you've been about anything in your life. Because I believe the more desperate you are about this deal, the better shot you got at making it. My last drunk was no big deal. I didn't sit around and plan it for 3 weeks or something. It just happened. It was a Friday night, the 27th of December, 1963. Just finished eating dinner. Made the big announcement to that woman and those kids. Told them I'm going out and have a couple beers with the guys. I'll be back in 2 hours. And she started that yak, 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 yak. You know what I'm talking about? There's Al-Anon. She knows what I'm talking about. And I said, listen, woman, I want to tell you something for the last time. I just put in 40 for a bunch of ingrates around here. And I'm going out and commiserate with my friends, and I'll be back in 2 hours. Now knock it off. And that was the 27th of December, 1963, at about 7 in the evening. And I got back on the 13th of January, 1964. I can't tell you to this day where the hell I was. I know on the 27th of December, 1963, at about 7:30, I went to my favorite watering hole, a place called the Prelude. Now, isn't that a nice name for a dump? The Prelude has the connotation you're only going to be there for a little bit. The Prelude on Lankershim Boulevard in North Hollywood, which really ain't a hell of a lot to shoot for. It was one of those padded sewers I'd started to frequent. You bar drinkers know what I'm talking about. I mean, they didn't even have a front door, just curtains hanging there. You've been in one, huh? I really went there to meet these lifelong drinking buddies of mine who I just met 2 weeks ago, right? And sure enough, they're all there. We started doing the things that real drunks do in bars. You know, they're doing it right now in Culver City. They're doing it in Glendale. They're doing it in San Francisco. The same identical thing. Not one thing has changed. They're all standing there talking in millions and spending in dimes, trying to impress people we don't know with money we don't have. If you're a smart drunk like me, you're trying to put the make on some dolly down there at the end of the bar and impress the heck out of them. And you know what? In this group of 6 guys I went to meet, fact of life, there wasn't one common laborer in the whole bunch. We were all brain surgeons and jet pilots and astronauts and doctors and lawyers and devout liars. And in this group of 6 guys, there's a new guy. His name was Pete. And Pete was one of them intellectual giants you meet in bars. You bar drinkers, again, know who I'm talking about. That's that guy or gal who sits down there at the end of the bar and has the answer to every living subject in the world. And they drive people like you and I nuts. And that was Pete. I mean, if you had marital problems, he had the answers. If you had legal problems, he had the answers. If you had medical problems, he had the answers. If you had engineering problems, he had the answers. I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I thought, how can one guy know so much about so many things? And he continued that drunk with us, and thank God he did, because as it turned out, Pete was really quite the guy. He was the one guy in the group who it seemed was always well enough to make the run for the rest of us who were too sick to make the run. Pete could find a jug on election day in a dry state. You know, one of them great guys? And besides that, he had A-negative blood, and I stuck pretty close to him. I just lost half the room again. You know how I know that? No matter where I go in this country or any other country, by the time I hit my car out here, 3 people at least are going to tap me on the shoulder and ask me the same damn question. They all say, "Hey, man, what do you mean by that A-negative blood crap?" And just so we don't plug up the street out here, I'll tell you ahead of time. First of all, if you have A-negative blood, it's rare blood. And when you're selling it to buy wine, you get more for A-negative than any other kind of blood. So I stuck close to Pete, right? I mean, I might have been born at night, but not last night. And I can't tell you the series of events that happened because I was passing in and passing out all the time. And we were living in these abandoned cars, one of which was mine. You laugh. You know how your car gets to be an abandoned car? That's kind of a work of art. The tires are usually flat, the battery's dead, it's out of gas, and it's usually 6 months behind in payments. Then legally it becomes an abandoned car. It also got to be our living room, our kitchen, our bedroom, and our bathroom. Got a little salty in there. And one of those mornings, I can't tell you which one, we all came to and Pete didn't. And he had swallowed his tongue that night in a convulsion. He was deader than a doornail. I got fighting mad at everything and everybody. And God, if there is a God, because my great intellect and better judgment took over, which incidentally got you here and got me here. Our great intellect and better judgment takes over. And my great intellect and better judgment said, you know, if there's a God, why would he let a good guy like Pete go, who knows everything there is to know about everything, and let me stay? And then I can't tell you how long Pete was gone, but this is what I never want to forget as long as I live. Early morning on the 13th of January, 1964. Something happened. They call it a phenomenon. I don't even know what the hell a phenomenon is, but something happened. Because all of a sudden, out of that radio came the most beautiful music I ever heard in my life. I know today it's hallucinations because the battery's dead, right? But it's as real as I'm standing here. It was like the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra was in the car with us. And the thought came to me, man, this is how it must be just before you die. And whether you believe this or not, everybody sitting here tonight all have a little tape up here that you conjured up and that I conjured up about your concept, what it's going to be like when we check out. And every one of them is different. And mine had something to do with music being played, and here was the music. And then I got scared. Have you ever been real scared? I mean, really, really scared? I thought cops aren't supposed to get scared. Well, I got real scared, and for the first time in my adult life, I got down on my knees in that sewer, cried out to a God I was absolutely certain did not exist. And if he did exist, he didn't want anything to do with a drunk like me. Well, I said that the only prayer I know, I said, God, if there's be a God, the only prayer I know is help me. And wouldn't you know, we figured it out after a while. My wife was at her desk at Warner Brothers that morning at the same time. And at the same moment, we figured it out. She started crying at her desk because I had been gone a long time. And wouldn't you know, some big, tall guy in a suit, later to find out he's the vice president of Warner Brothers, come walking through the secretary pool, tapped her on the shoulder and says, you better do that over here. He took her in his office, and for the first time in her career at the studios, she let it all hang out about this drunk that she's living with. And he's the father of her children, and she saved up enough money, and today is the day. She's made up her mind to going back home and leave him stay here. And he said, why don't you have him try Alcoholics Anonymous? And she said, how do you know? And he said, because I are one. Wouldn't you know it? The first time in 37 years at the studio, he broke his anonymity that morning to help one sick drunk me. And so I'm entirely indebted to a guy by the name of Matt Gilligan. God rest his soul. He's no longer with us. He literally planted the seed. And I got to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that night, and she went along to make sure I got there right. And all through the meeting, I walked out of there with sore ribs. She's always hitting me. You hear that? Did you hear that? I had the sore ribs to prove it, you know. And I got to tell you about her. Like I said, she didn't know anything about alcoholism, never had alcoholism, dealt with alcoholism in her life, and she didn't know anything about it, and she was on a tough ride. I put her through living hell. And on the 23rd of November 2001, she was diagnosed with cancer. And on the 23rd of December, 30 days later, God came and took her from me. 3 weeks short of 54 years of marriage. And my life has changed. I'll guarantee you, my life has changed. I hate them damn dishes. And I don't like that irony and all that stuff. And I found out something way too late in life that men really ought to know before it's too late. I learned it too late. Another fact of life. Women, and only women, can make a house a home. Men cannot do that. Women can make a house a home. And today I live in a house again. Today I live in a house again. And it's the pits. It's the pits, if you want my honest opinion. And I really miss her. But after that meeting that night, I was unemployed. And I went to the club like this. Walked in the door, and there's two guys sitting over there in the corner playing cribbage. And I walk in the door like here, and they stopped playing cribbage over there. And one poked the other one and said, we better do something with that one, or he's going to start jackknifing around the room here, you know. I mean, I wasn't nervous, just quick, you know. And they applied the only therapy they knew at that time, those two guys. They gave me a bucket of paint and a paintbrush, figuring that I could paint faster than anybody else in the place. And I painted that damn clubhouse, and I can't tell you to this day how long I painted. I don't know if I painted 5 days, 50 days, I think it doesn't mean anything. But I'll never forget the day I finished. It was a bright Saturday morning. Put away the buckets and the brushes, cleaned everything up just perfect, because we're perfectionists too, you know. And I headed out the back door of that clubhouse, and had a door something like this, and I reached for the push bar on the door, and the door opened up ahead of me, and there's this guy standing on a little landing out there. He has a smile from ear to ear, and he says, hi! I said, shove it. He says, why do you say that to me? I don't even know you. I said, shove it anyhow. He said, come here, I want to talk to you. Brought me back in the meeting hall where they had those Henroyd chairs, not these nice padded ones, them cold metal ones. And he set me down in them cold metal chairs, and I told him about them gray-haired goats, and he made me paint that damn club, and I'm going to get drunk at every one of them. And he ended up being my sponsor. And he said, if I'm going to be your sponsor, 3 things are going to happen to you, man. I said, yeah. 1, you're going to go to meetings. 2, you're going to study our book. And 3, for the first time in your adult life, you're going to follow instructions. I thought, how the hell does he know that? They say at that time there were 700 meetings a week in the greater Los Angeles area. Today there's 2,400 a week. And we made them all. Yeah, I mean, it was meetings, every night. And newcomers, it's going to happen to you because it's happened to every one of us, so don't feel bad about it. You're going to say to your wife, your husband, your buddy, your girlfriend, meetings every night. Tonight I'm not going. And that night he came by early, put me in the car and started down the freeway. I said, where are we going tonight? He's a crusty old bugger. He says, we're going to the hole in the ground. I said, oh my God, now they're going to bury me. For those, most of you don't know where the hole in the ground was underneath the E-Bell Club in Huntington Park, California. It was started by a guy by the name of Tex Adams, who had been sober since Lincoln had the measles. And thank God for people like Tex who started places like this for drunks like me. And he told me I had to study that book. He would not let up. He'd get me in a corner with the book in his hand, start pounding on the cover of the book, and then he'd start saying weird stuff, I thought. He would say, between page 1 and 164 of this book is how drunks like him and millions of others before him had found a way of not to die from chronic alcoholism. And then he'd look me right in the eye and say, if you don't want to do it, then get the hell away from me. I thought, how could he talk to a sick alcoholic like that? You know, don't he understand we're sensitive? He literally saved my life. Literally saved my life. He motivated me to do the one thing I would never have done on my own volition. I cracked the cover of the book, and I found me in there. We started down the steps into the E-Bell Club in Huntington Park, California, and I can't explain this. This feeling came all the way from the toes, I think. I can't explain it. But I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, Joe, I got to ask you something. And he turned around real gruff like he was. He said, yeah, what do you want now? And I knew that second he'd had me up to here. He was sick and tired of my BS, and I knew it. And I asked him that world-famous question that all newcomers are compelled to ask their sponsor. How long do I have to go to these damn meetings? And this wise old man with the X-ray vision got fighting mad that fast. Took his index finger and shoved me into the corner outside the meeting hall so they wouldn't hear it inside. When he got me in the corner where I couldn't get away, he started to get violent. Yeah, he started to hit me in the chest like this, and he started to scream. He said, you idiot. I didn't like that. He said, you have to go to meetings until you want to go to meetings, then you don't have to go to meetings anymore. Didn't make much sense then, but it sure does now. But that night, because he hit me in the chest and screamed at me, I'll fix his clock. I might have to be in a meeting, but I'm not going to listen. A couple here tonight doing that, you know? And I don't know what you do when you're sitting in a meeting not wanting to be in a meeting, but I'll tell you what I was like. I was uptight like a spring, you know, just going to bust. And I knew he wouldn't give me the keys to go home, and I'm trapped. And he sits you in the front row so you don't nod off, right? Right, honey? And I'm just about ready to flip out. And I had to do something to pass the time because they said things from the podium that I did not like. They said, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. I turned around, looked this herd over, and I thought to myself, I wouldn't have drank with half of these people. I mean, there's a couple here tonight I know I wouldn't drink with yet. So I had to do something. I was trapped, so I started counting light bulbs just to pass the time. I'd had a blast in here. And then I ran out of light bulbs, and I started winking at girls. And then I run out of girls. Then I spot this guy about 5 rows back, and he's scribbling on a piece of paper. I didn't know you had to take notes here. and now it's him. And he's sitting there writing on this piece of paper and thinking up stuff to say or whatever he was doing. All of a sudden, he gets up from where he was sitting, walked back that way, took that piece of paper, stuck it on a bulletin board back by the back door, and split. I didn't know you could do that. And I'm an ex-cop, and I'm nosy by nature. And I have to find out what's on that piece of paper. Big deal, right? So I sneak over to the bulletin board. Don't tell me there's no miracles. You know what was written on that piece of paper? It was a little poem about drunks. And I read it, and it made sense. And when nobody was looking, I stole it. Yeah, took it along home. And on the days when I was absolutely certain that I just can't make this thing, you know, it might be all right for you clowns, but I can't make it. And yet, I didn't want to go back out there in them damn cold cars and start drinking rot-gut wine again and die like my buddy Pete. So I get it on my billfold, read it, save my can a million times, and it's almost time to go. It's a little poem entitled, Which Place? I dreamed one night I passed away and left this world behind. Started down that lonesome trail, some of my friends to find. Came to a signboard on the trail, directions it did tell. Keep right to go to heaven, turn left to go to hell. I hadn't been too good on earth, just a hopeless, boozing rake. I knew there at the crossroads the path I'd have to take. So I started on the rocky path that leads to Satan's place and shook within not knowing just what I'd have to face. Old Satan met me at the gate. What's your name, my friend? I said, I'm just old sober Sam that's come to a sad end. He glanced through some files. You made a mistake, I fear. You're listed as an alcoholic. We don't want you here. I said, I'm looking for my friends. And a smile still over his face. If your friends are alcoholic, they're in the other place. So I went back the other way till the crossroads I did see and turned right to heaven, as happy as could be. St. Peter smiled and said, come in. For you, I have a berth. You're an alcoholic. You've been through hell on earth. I saw old Dub and old Pete, too. Bill C. and a friend called Bell. And brother, I was tickled because I thought they'd gone to hell. So brothers, I'll take warning, learn something from my trip. You got a place in heaven if you try hard not to slip. If someone tempts you with a drink when you're not feeling well, just tell him you're going to heaven and he can go to hell. Thank you.